I'd just like to welcome you for this conversation around community organizing COVID-19 and what is happening on the ground in Gauteng province. I'd first of all start by the speakers to introduce themselves, pandemic, and how they're linked to the C19 coalition that is in Gauteng. And for the international audience, I'd just like to make it known to you that Gauteng is a province in South Africa where the city of Johannesburg is actually located. Thank you. I think we should start with Cleo.
Hi, everybody. My name is Cleopatra Shezi. I was born and raised under the organization called Soweto Electricity Crisis Committee. I then graduated to a DLF, which is Democratic Left Front. Now I'm a strong woman and in all the social struggles because I want to see change. And how I got involved in the coalition, it's because most of the progressive academics and other progressive organizers in the communities, they invited me in. It started nationally. Then we felt that, okay, let's do something in our regions and in our communities. Then I initiated it firstly, this COVID-19, and to do popular education. I thought it will be very helpful to draft a pamphlet in explaining what is COVID-19, how we can protect ourselves and our loved ones. Then Professor Kate Alexander was in the suggestion. Then that's how we got the pamphlet, and that's how we started doing the popular education. And I communicated with my comrades from other organizations to then organize them to be involved so that they can represent their respective communities.
Just before you hand over to Bongani, can you just give us more information on how the C19 People's Coalition was formed? Because that's one thing that's very unique about how organizing is being done in Johannesburg. It's something that I've not seen in other parts of the world yet. So can you just give because you're a task team member, can you just give a background of the C19 People's Coalition?
Okay, the minute the president said there is this disease, I only felt that let me go and sanitize people at the pay points, because my grandmother was like, oh my God, what's going to happen with our pension? Then I said, you just have to calm down. Nothing will stop you to go and get your pensions or your grant. But I will make it a point that I start popular education there. Then we bought some sanitizers, some masks, some gloves. Then we started like that. Then later we had a national meeting. I think it was on the 25th, whereby we introduced this thing. Then KZN, Western Cape, Eastern Cape, and Limpopo, they buyed it in, and we then later develop a plan of how we can assist people on the ground with food. And yeah, up to date, we are still doing that, and we are going to make it a point that no one go in bed with a hungry stomach as we are this coalition. And even though at some point I feel like it's very disturbing, because some people, they do this thing because they want to politicize it, because others, they will say, you see, as ANC, we are giving you food parcel, or as EFF, or as what. As this coalition, we are not doing this as any political thing. We are doing this as we know how it's like to go in bed with an empty stomach. And as for us, we want to see a...
Thank you very much, Cleo. I think we can hand over to the next speaker, Bongani, to introduce himself and give his opinion and his experiences so far on the lockdown.
Thank you very much, and greeting to all of the participants. My name is Bongani Xezwi. I work for Right to Know campaign. I'm the provincial campaign organizer in Gauteng. I'm also a co-author of a Marikana book called A View from the Mountain and a Case to Answer. I'm tasked to actually I got involved in the Gauteng COVID-19 collusion through after the president spoke, and one of the things that we realized was that like the president have come with all measures and regulations, but forgot to include communities in order for us to assist in terms of fighting this pandemic spread. And that was a concern to me and other comrades. And at some point, what we did was to go to communities where poor communities, like for instance, we started this in Protea South under the banner of Soweto Sigma Struggle Movement, where we called communities to say, this is the challenge. So far, we are seeing that the president have unleashed the soldiers and the police to come and force people to stay at home. And in seeing that, what we're seeing the brutality of people being brutalized, people being assaulted on those things. And this was a way of a president to keep people in their doors. But what the president forgot, it was the issue of popular education. Because popular education was the key for our communities to understand what's going on. And in order for people to stay at home, the popular education was the most key. So what we said that in joining the collusion, the first part is completely was said that there was a pamphlet that was circulated. That pamphlet was a key role that was explaining exactly how people should behave, how people should understand the meaning of staying at home, the meaning of fighting this coronavirus. And through soldiers and police, that was not possible. It needed activists and community leaders to be involved in terms of making sure that people understand this. Remember that the president announced this lockdown 3 days before it started, and there was no time for them to do that. But in doing this, he limited everyone, even the activists, to participate. So, however, we went ahead in terms of trying to encourage, because one of the things that we realized even after the lockdown was that even when the police are assaulting people, but people still go out on the streets, people still behave. It's like, for instance, in places like in Protea South, where it's an informal settlement, people still like behave like it's just as usual as any other day. Because why? They are trying to get food, they are trying to get means, because these are people that live from hand to mouth. And in order for them to survive, they need to get something to eat, they need to get something to survive. So we had to encourage people to say, we are aware this is the problem, but at some point you need to stay at home, and these are the ways that we can do in order for us to avoid the situation, in order for us also to get food. And one of the things that we said, like for people to get food, was that we need to get some funds from different people or donations from different people to assist to give people food. But that must be explained to people that are to say, even if like you are sitting in the street, even if you are gambling or doing whatever, that won't help until like we do something in terms of forcing the government or other donors to assist. And that's what the COVID-19 did. In a few months later, what the COVID-19 did was to donate the meal to different people, because what we have realized is that what Leo was saying, that like people in different places where the ward councillors have used this as a political stand, whereby they are giving people out of which political party you are coming from. And because we are aware that next year it will be a 2021 local elections. And most of the ward councillors have now been using this. Even like when you are not documented or when you have a passport, they were not giving you food passes. So focusing on people that they are aiming to invest their vote on. So using the food parcel distributions. So we realize all those things, and that's how like we make sure that like there should be a organization and also strengthening the organization like a COVID-19 People's Coalition in Gauteng, to make sure that we fight all of that. I will explain more if like I'm not sure whether should I go ahead or maybe I should give others a chance, and then I will explain further my report.
Maybe you can just, because COVID-19 has actually been it's very unique in its own way because it requires social distancing. And in an area where you're based, like Protea South, where there is a very dense population, can you just like give an overview of how you're giving popular education on social distancing and, you know, what is practical, what can be done, what cannot be done on the ground?
Yeah. So one thing is that, like as I've mentioned, that like it was business as usual in Protea South because it's an informal settlement where there's less of things. There's some places there's electricity, some there's no electricity. Poor people that like have to go get water outside their yard, people that have to go to get toilets outside their yards and all that. So what we felt was that, like, in order for us to make this work, there's a need for popular education. People should understand how this virus, how you get affected by this virus, so that like they can keep themselves safe. So one was to go house to house, distributing the pamphlet, explaining to people the importance of social distance, the importance of washing your hands, and the importance of trying by all means to stay at home. So that like people, like for instance, in doing this, it was the most difficult part because it's a poor community. But however, people did listen and people did understand the fact that like children should try to play in their yards. There are people that told us like that, we saw these people like that, their children playing with other children, but through a fence. So the next door neighbors, there is a fence, then the other side there's a fence, and the children will play through that fence in order to avoid the situation whereby they're all on the street. Of course, we're not going to do this 100% correctly, but at some point, people did listen the importance of washing their hands, even at the malls that people were using in Protea South, like because there's a mall, they started like making sure that, like for instance, they keep a social distance of 1.5 because of the education that we started giving the people. There are people that like, as we're doing this, we're complaining to say, let Ramaphosa come and tell us this because we are living in an informal settlement with no electricity. But we have to educate them to say that's not the point now. The point is that like we're having a situation that affects all of us, and like let's deal with this. And then after that, go back to the struggle because the struggle continues. It's a long struggle that we've been fighting under so much whereby we're fighting for housing, electricity, and all that. But now we're fighting against a common enemy, which is this coronavirus. So yeah, that's how like we did things in Protea South. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to introduce Dave as the next speaker. He'll introduce himself and talk about his experiences with COVID-19 and community organizing.
Hello, everyone. Well, my name is Dave, and I'm in the Diepsloot area of the city of Johannesburg. This is the region A of the city of Johannesburg. So basically, I'm highly involved in the community response program, especially since the beginning of the lockdown. So as an organization called Global Hope Youth Foundation, we've been highly active in the community of Diepsloot, and we have been having quite a number of outreach programs that we've been carrying out into different extensions of Diepsloot. So with Diepsloot, as everyone is aware of some of the things that might be happening that normally would appear on national news. So it has never been that easy, but we have managed to, together through our volunteers, we have managed to reach out to different extensions, especially in the informal settlements. We must also remember that Diepsloot is in the northern part of the city of Johannesburg, and we've got about 3 wards, local wards, and it's got about 13 extensions, which are very much big. We've got a population of around about 300,000 people in the community of Diepsloot. So our team of volunteers, of course, they go out to different areas, such as at the clinics. They assist in educating our members of the community on the spread of the COVID-19, and also the issue of helping out the people, reminding the people on the issue of maintaining the 1.5 social distance, and really speaking to the people in general to just educate them in with regard to the spread of the coronavirus. So yeah, there are quite a number of challenges that we encounter along the way, And as we know that people now are stricken by hunger, and it's a bit hard for the people to just adhere to some of the regulations introduced by the president. And we are trying very to just make sure that we try to just educate as much as we possibly can. And people are reaching out, and the impact of our job here in 3 local wards in Diepsloot is pretty well, as we are now seeing people especially at the clinics adhering to the issue of social distance, which I believe is also one of the key messages that we need to send out to our different communities. But so far, the impact of the coalition is absolutely amazing. And since being involved and participating with the coalition, it's been quite amazing, and we truly appreciate the assistance that we're actually receiving from the coalition. And I'm a glad member of this coalition, especially in the Gauteng region. Thank you very much.
And can we go to the next speaker, which is it will be Lebohang. Lebohang.
Good day, everyone. My name is Lebohang Priska Mitileng. I'm a student in University of Johannesburg. I'm studying my honors in industrial psychology, and this is how it all started. So now when the president was introducing the lockdown, I had to leave and go home, right? So now for a week when I was home, I was just paranoid about the entire lockdown thing. And I was like, what can I do in my community? How can I assist in my community? Because honestly, there is so much boredom. And that's one of the other things that as human beings, you are going to encounter when you are home and you are doing nothing, right? So then I created a poster whereby I wanted to have sanitizers, masks, and gloves donated to the people around my community in Alexandra. Then I put it everywhere in your social media, everywhere. And for a week, nobody responded. And then after 2 weeks later, I got a response from somebody saying, hey, there's somebody who's asking if you can be part of this coalition that is helping and assist people in different communities. Are you keen? I'm like, sure. So now my thing is, that's how it started. And now, as I am talking now, community organizers in community exam, assisting people obviously because I believe we need to break the myths that are there about COVID-19. We need to tell people what it is. Because if you break myths, then people can find reasons why they should stay home. And another thing is knowledge power. Like I think as much this is clear, this is why it's being said that knowledge is power. And if you give knowledge to somebody, you are more likely to help them break free from the mind shackles that are there. Right? So now that has played a very important part for me, first as an individual and as a community member, because now I get to interact with the entire community and understand more better what has been happening. Despite the fact that I was born and bred in Alexandra, what I'm just saying is that I'm able to give, I'm able to assist with information, right? Now, here's the other thing, now that I'm speaking about my experience. We need to, just to draw the picture, because people only hear about Alexandra from the news. We see Alexandra from the news, or people have their own assumptions about Alexandra. And one of the known things is that Alexandra has rain. That's an easy thing that people know. But now my thing is, people are not aware of the informal settlements there. That in as much as we have interventions such as your social distancing, the same interventions are actually failing the people around, because honestly, there is no land. The people don't have space to move around. So now, in as much as this is not the time for us to be talking about that, but then we went around telling people that we understand that if when you are trying to get out of your house, you are near somebody's door, and it can never even be social distancing itself. But we are asking you as people to stay indoors and to go by the rules. Now, the other thing that made me realize as I interact with people is that there is going to be a time where people are going to be now, their loyalty towards this lockdown will deplete, and it's a fact. Because now they are saying, for how long are we going to be staying indoors? Because honestly, when you're indoors, you sleep, you wake up, you eat. You sleep, you wake up, you eat. Meaning there's a sense of boredom. There's nothing that you are doing. You're interacting with nothing. The mind gets bored. You understand? You also as an individual, you have no activities that you can do. You understand? So I found that as I interact with people around that, eventually there will be a time where there is just loyalty depletion, and it's just like that. And like I said, speaking about, because the question is also a thing in terms of giving food, you know, to the vulnerable people, and there was have to vulnerable. So we had to now say, okay, there are people, child-headed families in Alexandra. There are people, we have pensioners, we have people who are not working. We also have disabled people. How do we ensure that we close that gap? How do we feed these people? Because we know that a hungry man is an angry man, and that will eventually lead to a point where you have people looting in shops, and we are trying now to calm the situation. And that is where we come in, obviously, as community organizers, as community leaders, preaching this to people so people are aware of rather COVID-19 and it's okay. I think of COVID-19 rather, the way it is and its impact. So rather that's the experience I've heard, and I think that's about it. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Lebo. I think we'll just stick with you for now, because I'd like to ask you a few questions about, you know, the specific challenges that come around COVID-19. For instance, as your experience as a student, you know, how has schoolwork been affected, for instance? How do you feel? How do you interact with your fellow students for now?
Okay, so it's like much more easier, even because, you know, it touches home. So as I said, I had to come back home. You have to understand something. There's a reason why we leave our homes to go to races, because our homes do not accommodate for online learning. One, they do not also accommodate for learning itself, because some of us, the environment is not friendly as other privileged, as it might be in other privileged homes, you understand? So now, for me coming back home, in a home where I have siblings, younger siblings, who are always making noise, and that's life. They have to, because they are young, right? I cannot be saying to kids, no, stop making noise, stop doing this. That it's affecting me always when I now have to interact with my peers, for example, on Zoom, because normally we are told that we have to interact on Zoom. My point rather on that is the environment for many people, and not just me alone, from different students who are situated in different areas of South Africa, Northwest, Limpopo, you know, you can name them. They are obviously being affected by the entire online learning. If you are not affected, yet you still stand with the students who are being affected, right? Why is it that you are going to submit your assignment? Because you are saying you're standing in solidarity with them. And now my idea was that if we're going to stand in one and preach that online learning is not obviously appealing to everybody, it's not easy for everyone, then why are we also being double standard, ending up submitting your assignment, yet at the same time you are preaching about online not accommodating for everyone? Now, for me, that comes to saying that also, as us students, if you want this to continue and to be a thing, and that somebody out there can hear us, we need to make sure that we are one. You understand? We are one in that our solidarity must not be shaken. If I, as a student, I can be able to submit my assignment today because I can, and I still preach that there's somebody who can't, then I'd rather not send my assignment. Because if I send it, it's that thing that people can always say, okay, out of 20 learners in 50, so it's a minority. So probably it's just not affecting everyone. And you, that might be instance, because rather the idea is they're trying to save the academic year, but they saving the academic year on compromising other students, you understand, and not understanding other students facing. Because my question rather also is, have whoever who decides, you know, whatever they decide, have you been in certain areas and found and performed online learning? My question is, to whoever who decides to say, let online learning continue because you want to save the academic year, have you been to certain places that do not have network, where you know that there are students that do not even have technological devices? Because the problem is, it's just not data alone. The problem is just not data alone. It goes as far as technological devices, people do not having access to them. Have you applied online learning in those areas? In the areas like that, that is my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Lebo. That was quite eye-opening on the issues of the digital divide and how technology is really being used to. It's actually ameliorating the problems that already exist and the inequalities. So I'm starting to see some hands from the audience. I think we should pick them up as we keep going with the conversation. I'm seeing Kate Alexander's hand.
Hi, everyone. As an order activist, what's amazing for me about this conversation is that it's happening. I've never seen a webinar before with activists like this. And I'm wondering how it is that working class activists are managed to communicate and organize using Zoom. Has it posed problems? How well are comrades doing using this new medium? How does it relate to WhatsApp? How do both of these things connect with the way you're organizing on the ground, the use of pamphlets, talking to people, and so on? So I want to ask about Zoom and how you're managing it. And specifically, at the moment, are you on computers or are you on smartphones?
I think the first person to answer that question should be Cleo. And we just move in the same order that we have been moving.
I think there are challenges in organizing via social media. One, not all the people that we are organizing, they have smartphones to download WhatsApp. And there were this thing of free SMSs, and now it has just stopped. So it's very disadvantaging to reach out to everyone using WhatsApp and Zoom. And the most difficult one to understand Zoom, because at some point you will say you are speaking while you are on mute, and when you have to start fresh, your questions are missed, something like that. So it's very difficult, but I think as we learn, and based on the last question that Lebu was saying for the student, basically, we've been fighting as activists under the banner of Right to Know in demanding access to internet for all, because assignments are starting at a very early age. They are not starting at tertiary level. So we are staying with GoGos, who we rely on their social grant money to buy food and not to buy data, and not to buy Android phones and smartphones. So it's very challenging.
Bongani, what has been your experience with using Zoom specifically? You know, the architecture of Zoom itself is quite a challenge. So this whole new issue of raising your hand and the normalization of using this technology.
Yeah, maybe one needs to say that, like, under these circumstances, like, I was glad that we have such platform to discuss things, because we couldn't have, like, been able, even now, the meeting, the webinar that we have right now, it was not possible. However, this is something that can only be used by certain people, and it leaves other people behind, other activists. One, for you to be able to use, like, I'm using my cell phone, and using my cell phone, I had no, like, there are people that had no money for data. We had to rely on someone to assist you in terms of data to be able to be connected. So, and like, we know the issues of data in South Africa, like, for instance, how expensive data is in South Africa, even though, like, Vodacom and Telkom have started to give some specials. But fact of the matter is this, like, the issue of data is a problem. Other people will rather buy bread than buying data. So, and in order for you to be connected on Zoom, these are the things. Also, the issue of WhatsApp. During the COVID-19, after the lockdown, the government started spying on people just to say what's they're saying, what's that they're posting, and all those things in the name of checking people if they're posting fake news or whatever. But we know that the government have been wanting for quite some time to check on activists. And this was an opportunity that was taken to make sure there are guys that were speaking badly about Preceded and Xezwi, and they were arrested after because of, like, the social media and also the WhatsApp posting and all these things. So, so it's a bit of both. Like, somehow they are good, but they are mostly some bad things, because of there are people people that like are inaccessible. And in terms of organizing in community, that's not possible. It's only possible to speak to academics, intellectual, and other people, but in community organizing, it's never possible. That's why, like, we had to do a door-to-door popular education, because even our government relied on saying that we're going to use social media to educate people about the COVID-19, which was a big failure. That's why I'm saying that the government, when they did this, they forgot to include the activists, they forgot to put community leaders in order for them to assist their community. We remember even the time when there was a pandemic of HIV and AIDS, when it started, like, the government did the best part because of the activists going around the TAC Congress and others going around communities and educating people about HIV and AIDS. That's how people started reacting positively towards it. So yeah. So that's how, like, I'm saying that, like, it's a bit it's good and bad. To people or communities, I don't even think that they are even aware of Zoom or how Zoom works.
Okay, thanks. Dave, can we have your perspective?
There's absolutely, I don't see anything wrong with Zoom and introducing, especially the working committee on Zoom, just to share information on how to develop great working models to better assist our communities. But what I'm saying is that with the communication with the general public, like Bongani was saying, we've worked on so many different programs where we would do outreach programs. So I think the pamphleting part of things to just educate our general public works best. I believe, pamphleting and distribution of pamphlets just to spread out great messages to our general public, I think works best. We've seen it working, so I think it could be our way forward. So,
thank you. I'm just seeing a very interesting comment on the chat from Peter Dwyer, who's saying WhatsApp is now owned by Facebook, and like Zoom is not fully secure. Some of us in the UK have been using free open source platform called GC Meet. Fantastic meeting and inspiring work, comrade. Solidarity from the UK. Keep safe and keep socialist. So I mean, some of the issues also around the usage of some of these platforms is because they're owned by corporations and our privacy. So when you're trying to say of organizing here, we need to be very careful in terms of how are we using these platforms. We really need to use it as a complementary and not really majorly our main issue, our main platform for communication. Although with COVID-19, to be honest, I find this kind of platforms very useful. With that, maybe I would like to have the panelists responding to each other based on their personal experiences. For example, the politicization of food distribution. I'll start, of course, with Cleopatra, and maybe just give a brief overview on that. And I'd also recommend the audience to please raise their hands if they have questions.
In distribution of food, the competition at the moment is very high because ANC, they are doing the same thing as we are doing, and now they want to disturb our program by keep on sending people as if they come from Department of Health. Even today, I went to the councillor's office in Orlando to deal with such tendencies of the councillors, even though they want to politicize this, but we have to make them clear and aware that this has nothing to do with politics, because we are all hungry at the end of the day, and we must all respond to the globe crisis. So we have a good relationship with most of the police stations because they see what we are doing and they can see that this is helpful, and they like the fact that it has nothing to do with politics. Even though in some areas it's very difficult to have police on ground escorting our van, our cars while doing the distributions, but we will keep on polishing them and motivating why it is important for them to even though give us patrollers at least to accompany us on our program?
So in my case, this is what it has been like. So the first time when I did my distribution, which occurred last week, where I received 150 parcels, I was assisting rather in the organization. I mean, in the community. So now the problems that I encountered with people would come and say that they also came to write their names so then they can receive food, which now they were saying, but we are also hungry. You guys cannot be saying you are looking for vulnerable people when in actual fact we are all hungry. We all need food, you understand? In as much as you have your own definition on vulnerable is, you need to understand staying at home makes us face these challenges of being hungry, right? And the other issue that basically I had was trying to work with law enforcement in the community. It wasn't so much effective because I came across, I was just a volunteer and a community who is maybe not known, or maybe I'm not part of, let's say, any active, any political party or whatnot within the community. So maybe that was also the problem. You know, sometimes where there are questions like, who is she? Who is she? So when somebody doesn't understand who you are or whatever, it becomes really a problem when you're approaching for opportunities, where I would be taken from pillar to post, from social development and the police station permits and whatnot. Rather, that's one of the other challenges that for me and my volunteers, it's not so easy to walk around and you know, because of the lack of permits, right? But we, at the end of the day, we have to deliver. And also ensuring that we get space is safe for the parcels will get, right? Because we need to ensure that secure and there isn't any problem, right? So I guess that in what I have covered working on in the ground. We are growing and it's a yeah.
Thanks so much. I'm seeing some questions that are coming in, and I think the speakers who I skipped or have not managed to speak yet, like Bongani and Dave, can answer. Do the activists have permits or something of that nature? I think I'd leave that to Dave. You can also maybe talk about how the C19 coalition, the C19 People's Coalition as a whole, has helped in trying to ensure that all work is coordinated at a regional level.
When we started, like as we said, we had volunteers that wanted to do work, that wanted to do popular education, and those are activists on the ground. We did not have any permits, and we did not get, like, we tried to get permits, but it was a long process. However, what we did, we went to the nearest police station and tell them to say, look, this is a challenge. We see the brutality that's happening in our people. We see that people, like, for instance, don't understand what's happening, and we would like to assist. And in assisting, we would like to do more popular education and do, and if we get any food parcels, and we would like to distribute door by door. So the police, as we presented this, the police, the station commander that we went to, liked the idea. And he also mentioned to us to say, we have a challenge whereby the number of police is limited and we can't really be able to be everywhere. And if we have people like you, then it means for us, it's a great thing. And from there, we started doing work. We had several meetings with police, CPF, also invited some councillors to come and join our meeting so that, like, we make sure that this becomes a community thing without being politicized, right? So that's how, like, we try to do this. Yes, we did not have permits, and also we understood that even ourselves were supposed to be on a lockdown, be at home, but our intentions was to make sure that, like, we give a thorough popular education so that everyone understands what does this mean, and we had to go out of our homes to be on the front line to assist our communities.
Another comment I'm seeing on the chat box is from Taffy, who says, in Zim, we have seen the politicization of food distribution, with priority being given to ZANU PF supporters. The worst we have seen is a ZANU PF MP who, after receiving donations, went on to print his face and have it put on donated items. So I think it's just the same issues around, the same trouble with organizing and it being used also as a political issue. that these people are gathering votes for themselves for the near future. As just Bongani mentioned, like there'll be a local election next year, and it's kind of being used as an opportunity for them to pitch for themselves. But also, more importantly, some of the issues that comrades you mentioned at the beginning, it's like housing issues, electricity issues, and some of the things that highlight that the current policies that we have, honestly, are not sustainable, and they're being actually highlighted much more during this kind of pandemic. So I don't know, maybe Cleo or Bongani or any other speaker, even from the audience, can just give their contribution on this, please, as we try to wind up.
So I was just saying that, also in Diepsloot, it's pretty much the same challenge that we're facing with regard to food distribution. It's these typical political people that are using our programs to gain, votes in the upcoming election. So also the issue of, local councillors, people that would want to, because remember, as a coalition, we cannot distribute food parcels to people that are governed by the local authority. So the local ward councillor is our entry point to different communities, and once we do not have a good working relationship with them, then that is going to put us into a position where we are not going to be able to render adequate and excellent services to our people. So the issue of distribution is pretty much the same, almost the same with different communities, because at the present moment, everyone is hungry, and wherever they hear there's food, they would come rushing and they would break whatever.
Okay, Dave, thank you for your contribution. Lebo?
I believe that every community has own nightmares, own challenges, rather. So even before we had to experience lockdown and COVID-19, we have always had a problem with poverty. We have always had a problem with food insecurity for people. We have always had a problem with gender-based violences. All of these things are social ills of most communities, rather. So now, when COVID-19 obviously was introduced to us in our country, it even shed more light. It even brightened the entire situation to show that, hi, we've been existing forever. We've been here forever, and we didn't start all of these us experiencing hunger. It is something that has been happening for the longest time. So when you're on the ground, rather, as I'm saying, it's something that you get, from the people. It's something that you receive, and as our community organizers and community activists, obviously it's our duty and responsibility that even after the lockdown or after this pandemic, we can be able to go back to the ground and say, yes, we have dealt with hunger, we have dealt with this and this, but now these are the other situations that have always been there. Can we now try to stop them? Because we have dealt with other changes. Because then after COVID-19, then it also said we can overcome anything. If we overcome so the overcome, we have all them to and parents and so what I'm saying is, even during this time of depression in the ground, we are more likely to grow and listen things about ourselves. We were told they are impossible to change. You understand? So rather, I think that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd also like that the speakers who are not speaking to switch off their videos just to improve the quality of the call. We have 2 comments coming in. Ivory Park is out of water today, but I got inspired by what I saw today with people collecting food and cooking communally. Is this something that can be encouraged, even those who didn't contribute aid? I mean, it's just part of what is happening during crisis. You're seeing new forms of solidarity that are emerging, and yeah, everything is kind of changing on the more optimistic side of it, because you're seeing these communities coming together, people thinking about communal rather than individual efforts. And then I'm seeing another comment from Peter Dwyer. We have tried to hold Zoom training sessions to help meeting run smoothly. It might be worth putting all the tips on how to use phones to get better and cheaper reception, etc. Yeah, even within the community organizing working group specifically, there has been a lot of training on Zoom, and I guess it's something that will continue even after the COVID-19 pandemic, because Zoom will become a normal way of life. I presume we'll have to see what will happen after that. But our next, I'd like also to encourage the audience to raise their hands if they have a question. Lebo, I see your hand is up, but I think it's an old hand. Okay, down. Because we're winding up, and if this is like the last chance to speak, sorry. So
Okay.
we're getting back to Cleo on the issue. Cleo?
May you please repeat the question?
The question was just like how COVID-19 has reinforced the inequalities that are already existing, and what is happening specifically in your home, in your area where you're organizing.
Yeah, so because we are buying electricity, we are buying water, we are buying almost everything. So at first, we had to fight in buying electricity, because that on its own was going to expose individuals on how poor we are. So secondly, even water, we have to take our medication, we have to bath, we have to do washing. If you don't have money to buy water, that's also a sign of showing how poor we are. Now it's the Zoom thingy and trying to organize on social media. It's also a sign of showing how poor we are, because the minute you don't have data, you don't have a smart gadget to communicate with your relatives and your comrades, and so there is a lot of inequality. Hopefully, this is a learning curve for people to solidarize with each other, because at some point there was a movie that was screened in one of the walls here, so we were looking at the video on our windows and fence, so that was something to keep our kids busy. So in actual fact, we are still far to fight capitalism, because we are where we are because of capitalism. So yeah, let's eat together. No one must go to bed hungry. That's my struggle.
Thanks. I'm seeing Maria's hand is up. Maria, please unmute yourself and speak.
Hello. Hi. Thank you, Chairperson. Thanks for very interesting discussions and inputs. I'd like to just ask Lebogang to tell us a little bit more about the student struggle, and how it's been integrated into the community struggles now around COVID-19, making sure people have access to food, basic services, etc. Education, in my word, is also a basic service, a basic right. So I'd just like some more information from her in terms of how this campaign is being integrated. And I didn't catch where, which is she a student at UJ? Perhaps you can just fill us in a little bit about that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question, Lebo.
I'm studying my honors in industrial psychology. So yeah, so now just to answer on how have we been working on the ground with the people I work with. So I work with a number of youth. It's just people from 19 years old of age and as far as 29. And what we are doing, as I said, doing popular education, because rather, I believe it is our responsibility as the young people to come back, get the education that we have gotten in the institutions, to also come back and instill it in people. And we have learned a variety of ways on how learning can be done. And we believe that by us doing it as young, it has been much more effective. Now, you asked me about the student struggles, rather on what are the student struggles around, I don't know if you're asking me the student struggles around COVID-19 or the student struggles within my community, but I will just answer on both of them. So now, one of the things that I think we are struggling with as the students currently is that we are now ending up signing up for what we call digital activism. right? So which is digital activism, rather, it's something that has already been existing, but it's now getting to a point that any one of us can become an activist and say anything, anytime, create a hashtag, and then it can be viral and it can be something that can be spoken about. But rather, for me, it comes as though we are also killing these movements that we have always had in our institutions, because we have had your Polish institutions which are getting to a point where they are being crushed. There's a possibility that they can be crushed. Why? Because now the interaction is just going to be more on your online discussions, political online discussions, rather than having interaction. Because you need to understand also that it is these small elements, such as meeting together as comrades, singing songs, that bring us together and that make solidarity, that make us to be one, rather. And now, because we are not exposed to those certain elements and we are now into digital activism, it's also not much of a challenge for others, but it is a challenge for others, because that means certain activists who cannot access online, they cannot be part of those online political discussions that are taking place. So what I'm also saying is that certain people are being left behind, right? Even though we are continuing about it. I don't know if I've answered your question. Clarity?
Hello. I just wanted to know, to what extent are you integrating this struggle into what you're doing in the community? Because, you know, education is a big issue in communities as well. So are you taking the struggle that's taking place in the university among students? Because there's a lot of school youth at home at the moment as well who don't have e-learning, right? And a lot of youth in high school and private schools and high school and primary schools who at private schools who are doing their learning on Zoom, on e-learning, etc. So my question is, how are you integrating this into the communities where you are actually mobilizing? Because I listened to your mobilization plan, etc., access to food, etc. So I wanted to just know how you're taking education into your community as well as a struggle.
Okay, just to answer to that. So because, as I'm saying, because we started last week rather with our own popular education, and also the distribution of food has been something that is standing out for us, rather, because that's how we got into the coalition. So the volunteers that I work with, we actually realized that gap, that there is a need to now assist the other students who are just roaming around in the township, and basically they cannot be able to access internet and whatnot. And then we have thought that probably we can speak with so what I'm trying to say is that we haven't done that, because we have been focusing more on distributing food to the people. That has right now been something that is standing for us in our community, and popular education rather has been minimized, right? Because then of the idea of hunger, trying to stop hunger, you know. So now what we were planning rather to do, we'll see when it will start, is that we will go to our counselor, and are assisting sometimes when they is we ask that at least libraries they can open, and then these libraries open, we can allow people to get sources, even if not to study, but your students, because students that are in our community, rather, they can come and get take books, read books. The other thing was that we'd also want to make sure that there are a lot of hotspots in and around Alexandra. So, for example, if I stay near a library and I can get in, but there's Wi-Fi, I can even use that if I do not have access to data. So it's still an ongoing thing whereby we want to suggest that we can have libraries open, right? So that we can get certain resources that we need, because internet cannot provide everything.
Thank you very much for your contribution. I think we should end the meeting unless there are any further questions. And I would like to thank you all for participating in this meeting.
The University of Johannesburg, the future reimagined.